Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Medford Community Development Board. This is May 3rd, 2023. Begin by calling the meeting to order and reading some messages for you. This hearing of the Medford Community Development Board is being conducted via remote means. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in chapters 2, or maybe that's 202 of the Acts of 2023. A reminder that anyone who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by accessing the link that was included on the meeting agenda posted on the City of Medford website. If despite our best efforts, we're not able to provide real-time access, we will post a recording of this meeting on the city's website as soon as possible. A reminder that given the remote nature of this meeting tonight, all votes from the board will be made by roll call. And also for members of the public, please know that project materials for projects before the board are available at the city's recently updated website, medfordma.org. Go to boards and commissions. You'll find us alphabetically there. Click through and you can find info on the board's activities. Start tonight with a roll call. Welcome again. My name's Dave Blumberg and our Vice Chair, Jackie McPherson.
Yes.
Welcome. Christy Dowd.
Here.
Claire Calvis.
Here.
And Ari Goff.
Here.
Kleist and Emily, our usual board members, will not be in attendance tonight. Amanda, would you like to say hello and prompt any other city staff in attendance to say hello to members of the public?
Sure. My name is Amanda Centrella. I am a staff planner in the Office of Planning, Development, and Sustainability. On the call with us tonight, we have Danielle Evans, who is our senior planner, Director of Planning, Development, and Sustainability, Alicia Hunt, the fabulous graduate intern, Rin Piasecki, as well as Bill Forty, Building Commissioner, and our Director of Traffic and Transportation, Todd Blake. And I wanted to just acknowledge a quick typo so David and I had used like a prep document to organize everything, and I meant to adjust. It's Ari Goffman Fishman.
Oh, apologies, Ari. Sorry about that.
No worries. It's taken 3 months to get the paperwork in after getting married. So,
well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to the first item on our agenda, which is related to 142 Mystic Ave and Great American Beer Hall. Public notice was shared on this matter. This is a continuation of a hearing that began last Wednesday relative to an amendment to the conditionally approved site plan submitted by Brian Zarther for the construction of a new 22,025 square foot beer hall at 142 Mystic Avenue. Petitioner has submitted a modified site plan for the review of the board with additional design details accommodating for the changes conditioned by the board at the October 26th public hearing. So, welcome to Brian and the team. I thought before we hear the latest that you want to share with us tonight,
Sure.
I thought I'd just try to frame things a little bit for members of the public or board members. So as you may recall, the site plan was approved back in the fall, and the site plan had a certain number of conditions. I'm looking at the minutes from that meeting in my hand here, and there were conditions that were labeled A through P. Okay, we had that. And then there were a number of things that the applicant was going to return to the board to discuss. And those are identified, at least in our minutes here, as items A through I.
Yep.
And so last week we were talking about a limited number of items. I think the applicant has briefed us on the vast majority of these. It seemed to be that the
So-
remaining open items were, just looking at my list and trying to follow that. 1G, which dealt with landscape buffer. And then we had some questions about the traffic mitigation, which was one of the points in the second grouping. And we had some questions about the parking circulation. So I think those are the things that you're going to report to us tonight on, and that we'll all
Exactly.
Does that
Yeah,
sound good?
I'll just read them out loud.
Okay, great.
And so the first one that was the applicant to include a landscape buffer zone around the main parking lot. And the second one was applicant to explore the use of one-way vehicular loop and angled parking throughout the site. And so I think we have a really good solution to this. And I am going to hand it off to Michael Giuliano, our site engineer, to discuss.
Great, thank you.
Now, this is Mike Giuliano at Eagle Brook Engineering.
Welcome, Mike.
I have, thank you. I have two layouts to show you. Can I share my screen so I can show the layouts?
Yes, just one moment. Okay, you should be good.
Okay. Does everybody see this layout
Yes, thank you.
in my cursor? Okay. So based on the last meeting, from what I understood, the board wanted a buffer between the north property line and the parking. And one of the ideas was some type of angled parking. And I came up with two layouts. This angled parking is before you now. I just want to show you how it works, how it relates to the property. And then we have another layout which we prefer, which I'll show you after I show you this angled parking. So the main aisle is still two-way, shown by the arrows. And we did angle parking in the parking area where it's a one-way. So you basically go past the building and then take a left into the parking area. The angles are at 60 degrees. The parking aisle for these angled spaces is 15 feet wide. And what it does is it creates a buffer from the edge of the parking to the edge of the property line of almost 6.5 feet. And what we also did was created 3 islands of green space within the parking area. And I think that's a layout that the board wanted to see. A couple of things we don't like about it is, one, it reduces the number of parking spaces by approximately 15. So the original layout that was submitted is 102 parking spaces. This layout is approximately 87 spaces. And the other item is, I think Brian at the meeting showed you the proposed development of the north parcel that they also own, that they would like to develop at some point. And the angle spaces don't allow the sharing of spaces and that development to work very well, and the perpendicular works much better. So those are the two main reasons why, we don't prefer the angled spaces, but I did want to show it to you because that was obviously a request. But what I would like to show to you is the second layout. And does everybody see the second layout?
Yes.
Okay. And so I call this the reduced main aisle layout. So the main aisle on the original layout is 28 feet wide. And for a two-way, that aisle can be 24 feet. So what I did was this section of the main aisle is reduce it by 4 feet. And by doing so, that allows us to take the entire parking area and bring it south by 4 feet. And what happens is the distance from the edge of the parking to the edge of the property line is roughly 5.5 feet. It creates a buffer along that north property line. So that, this property as it stands alone has a buffer, on that north side. Obviously, at some point in the future, with the development of that north parcel, that would change and there'd be some shared parking, shared aisles, whatever that development is. That lot is the same kind of configuration, long and narrow. And this main island remains a two-way. And I show it, the parking area, as a one-way with these arrows. Now, it can be a two-way because the parking aisle is still 24 feet wide. But I show it as a one-way. And I don't really have a preference which way, whether it's a one-way or two-way, but there's an option to do both. But I'm showing it as a one-way with the arrows. And the number of spaces is reduced by 2. And the only reason why we lose 2 spaces is because we proposed the 3 green islands within the parking area. So we went from 102 spaces to 100 spaces. This layout increases the landscape area. I think on the original layout, we had 9,500 square feet of landscape area. And with this layout, we have 11,500. So we have an additional 2,000 square feet of landscape area. So the reason why I like this layout is because of increase in the landscape area. There's a minimal reduction in the number of spaces. There's a lot of flexibility in the parking area to go one-way or two-way. I know when Brian talked to the fire department, they just wanted access to 3 sides of the building. However, a fire truck can enter the parking area if need be. I don't know if there would be a need, but at least there's the capability of doing that, of coming in and coming out at the other end. And most importantly, it's going to work well with a development to the north of the property that they own. And I believe at the last meeting, Mr. Blake actually kind of commented that the angle spaces don't work with that type of development next door and that perpendicular is preferred. So, and I would agree with that assessment. So, based on all the above, this is the layout we would like the board to review and approve if you feel it's satisfactory.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation there. I want to just be cognizant of the public comment period. And so with that in mind, maybe does the applicant want to talk about traffic mitigation, which I think was another item, or what your latest thoughts are there? I'm trying to make sure we get everything out in the open, and then the public can respond to everything, and then we can proceed to the discussion with the board on everything.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. We're going to work with Mass DOT in trying to where the Mystic Ave turns into 2 lanes to 1 lane. We're going to try and cut that back to where Atlas Liquors is. It also put a crosswalk in where the opening to 142 Mystic is now. So it's easier for bus access on the other side of the street. Just makes it safer.
Okay.
And just a comment on that is that obviously Mass DOT owns or has
Yes.
the approval rights on that. So whatever is presented to them, they may say, well, we don't like it, or we do like it. And so it's we're under their purview as far as whether or not, something can be done.
Okay. All right. And before we go to the next step on the parking, do you have an idea, just in terms of describing this before the public might participate, of the buffer just going to be green space, open space? Like maybe that vision hasn't come to 100% fruition for you, but
Yeah, Mr. Chris, are you talking about the buffer that's to the north of the property?
there you go. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, so that would be landscaping. So the landscape plan before you obviously had there wasn't room to do the landscaping, but that area would be landscaped.
Okay. All right. Amanda, could we proceed to invite the public to comment?
Yeah. Go right ahead. Let's see. So, yeah, for those who want to provide any comment, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen, or if you want to just make a little message in the chat if you're not sure how to use it, the raise hand, feel free to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to take a look at our our office's email account. We had not received any emails prior to the meeting with comment, and it looks like we still have not received further comment there.
And you mentioned the email address, Amanda?
Yes, and I'll just mention ocd@medford-ma.gov, and I can put that in the chat as well.
Okay, great. Any other folks, any raised hands that you can see? I can't see from my perspective.
No worries. Yep, I see no raised hands. I'm not seeing any comments in the chat either.
Okay. All right. Let's move along then to the board deliberation. Before I invite the board to talk, I should, out of courtesy, invite city staff if there's someone who would like to weigh in. If not, we'll go to our board discussion.
If I may.
Please.
I thought I would just offer a little clarification. As you all know, we submitted a PDS memo with sort of a proposal on moving forward. And one part of that proposal was regarding the traffic mitigation, which Brian and Michael have spoken to. And Michael made the mention that, it is up to Mass DOT to approve or, perhaps deny any proposal or plan that's sent their way. And so the condition that we offer is, in the event that either there is no response by a certain date or there is a denial of the proposal, is the alternative would be that then the applicant is only responsible for the painted bump outs. And then in the event that the proposal for that lane merge shift and the crosswalk shift is accepted by Mass DOT, then that is the only piece that the applicant would be responsible for. So excluding the bump outs.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. With that, let me turn it over to the board, and I should clarify that our vice chair is recused from this matter. So that leaves us with the four of us, myself, Christy, Peter, and Ari. Any questions for the applicant?
I would just like to commend the applicant's engineer for these plans. Speaking as a traffic engineer who's worked a good few private site jobs in my time, these are some very nice proposals to come up with in a week. And I do like the shifting the drive aisle from 28 to 24. That's a very good way to kind of come up with the extra space. And there's very little. I mean, I assume that was initially kept wider for delivery trucks, but there's very little that in my professional experience that trucks can need 28 feet to do that they can't also do in 24. So I think that shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you, Peter. Ari, I can't see you on the screen, so I'm calling you out. But tell me pass if you're passing. Okay. Oh, technical difficulties with Ari. Okay, no problem. I'd like I'll make a couple of comments, and yeah, it's certainly a lot better. I think having the buffer is really what, this was something that Kleist was raising on behalf of the board at the last meeting. You certainly met the ask there, and that's appreciated. From my perspective, I mean, that's more important. I like the one-way traffic flow back there. I think that's a sharp idea. And I don't see a reason for the angled parking and to make you have fewer spaces. So that's my view on that. And I'm pretty open on the mitigation. I think what the office with the city PDF's office is proposing makes some sense. I think the crosswalk's probably the best, most impactful thing that we can see here. I think that would really help the community. And if DOT goes along with it, that'd be a nice addition. So those are my comments on those couple of items.
Thanks, David.
Christy, or you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. I actually
No problem.
appreciate the thought that went behind this, and the sharing the two options that have been considered. And I think the option that's up now is reasonable and makes sense.
Great. And then Ari was having the technical difficulties. I'm not sure, Ari, we'd like to hear from you if you've had those ironed out, but.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Oh, excellent. Welcome back.
Fantastic. Yeah, I similarly like that you brought the two proposals with the pros and cons. I think this one fits all the things we were looking for last time. So thanks for getting that in quickly, and hopefully we can move this forward in time for your bank.
Thanks, sorry.
Okay, excellent. So I think we do have, because just of the nature of the decision, conditions, your report back to us and so forth, we have to kind of figure out how we're going to frame any potential decision here. And so maybe we can talk about that. It seems, let me just sort of lead the discussion, and obviously those of you voting tonight, if I'm going too far, please jump in, pull me back, rein me in, whatever you like. It seems that we're feeling pretty good about the landscape buffer, which was condition 1G, which I don't know that we're talking about a waiver anymore. I think the applicant seems to have satisfied that based on the discussion we just had. We want to address the mitigation piece. And I guess if anyone on the board is inclined not to go along with the PDS recommendation, we should talk about that and kind of figure out what we want to do with that. There was a condition about a raised crosswalk at the building entrance. I think that came up at the last meeting.
Yeah, so on the layout, I have a note saying raised crosswalk for traffic calming, which makes a lot of sense. And then I also added in the patio beer garden, permeable pavers in that area.
Oh, that's a nice addition, Mike. We appreciate that. And I know Emily, who's not here tonight, would especially appreciate that. She was focused on that for us. So those are good. You've got wayfinding, obviously that will be consistent with the one-way traffic on part of the site and two-way on the other. Again, I'm just trying to brainstorm on conditions that would be relevant. And we have maybe a question of, is this the site plan, or there's also landscaping? So that might be a condition. Or Amanda, if you or your colleagues want to weigh in on kind of what the updated and approved site plan might consist of.
Yeah, I think because, and others correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because this site plan is sort of addressing, a couple of the things, the buffer, the one-way circulation, the raised crosswalk, and it also has that note about the permeable pavers. It may be that we could just amend the decision to designate this document as the control plan? Does that sound like the way, and maybe, yeah, does that sound like the way forward?
My question for you on that is, how do we integrate the landscaping, which I think was done on a separate color-coded plan, if I recall, and obviously there's a little bit more now because there's a landscape buffer, so there's a little bit more greenery than what was reflected on that plan. So we just don't want to lose sight of that as well, because I don't think those features are necessarily reflected here in this plan.
Yeah, maybe could it be so designating up this sheet and integration of the landscaping elements from the landscape plan provided in the, April 26th submission?
Okay. Okay. I'm furiously writing this down so we can keep track of it. Okay. There are also a couple.
Danielle has a suggestion on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, this is Danielle, Danielle Evans, Senior Planner. I know that we had talked about placement of trees in some of these landscaped islands. I just want to make sure, so they're not on this plan, but I just want to make sure things are not precluded from being added because this is a control document. Was there an updated landscaping plan? I just want to make sure that we're just conditioning everything that we need to condition so that no one has to come back.
I didn't update the landscaping plan for this meeting, no.
So I think that we can just, condition that that the plan will comply with, the criteria for landscaping in large parking areas, which, outlines the number of trees and, maybe some widths could be just tweaked a bit, but I don't think it's anything that needs a full redraft of a site plan. I think they're very de minimis. So I think there could be like a kind of a catch-all.
Yeah. To further your thought, Danielle, as I read the conditions from the initial site plan approval, it seems like there's room to see those requirements as part of these conditions, because there is reference to the trees and plantings per landscape requirements in the city ordinance. So I would think that would give you room that when you in your office take a look at the plans ultimately to sign off on them and confirm that they're what was approved, you'd have an opportunity to take a look at those items that you just mentioned. Does that sound sensible to you?
Yeah, I just want to make sure if we, said something like, okay, this island should be increased in width slightly. And if that shifted something slightly like a parking space, that we don't want everything to like blow up. If it's pretty much, it's a de minimis change, but still is, satisfies, the essence of everything that's being required.
Sure. Okay. All right. And are folks feeling okay about the traffic mitigation? Anyone want to speak on that point, or if not, that's fine.
I think the traffic mitigation is kind of the, as with so many other roads in Medford, the best you can hope for with state controlled roadways. I mean, I think what you guys have is pretty good. And if if DOT allows it, which I hope they do, that would be great to have.
Peter, what's your sense, if you want to offer this, of what a reasonable deadline is? PDS has suggested that the applicant would put together and submit professionally prepared plans to DOT by a certain date. You have a sense of what a reasonable expectation would be there for us to
offset mitigation for the crosswalk, and what else were they? Just refresh my memory. I remember the crosswalk. I don't know if there was anything else specific.
I don't know that the merging of the lanes or the shift of the merge lane would require DOT involvement, but that was the other.
Okay. I'd say like you could do probably a kind of basic kind of conceptual in like a couple weeks, depending on what work, how much time there is to get it done. I mean, I don't know how quickly. I mean, that's my thought is, I don't know how quickly, if you get this to Mass DOT to probably to District 4 traffic, how quickly they'd address it, even if you did get it in really quickly.
Right. And I think the sense or the suggestion from city staff is to have a deadline to submit the materials, which would, demonstrate a good faith effort to try to get the darn thing approved,
Yeah. I mean, I'd say, okay. I mean, I'd say probably 2 weeks as a maximum. I mean, that would allow plenty of time, but still get it in pretty quickly.
Okay, maybe June 1st to give everyone.
Oh yeah, that would be certainly enough time.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So as we, I think, are approaching the point where we want to put together some motions for our board to consider. Does the applicant, anybody have anything else to weigh in on before we huddle here to try to get a motion together? Okay. All right. So let's see. I think what we're suggesting here is to amend the previously approved site plan to replace the control plan with the one that was presented here, that we've all been looking at, with the landscaping plan, all the details from the landscaping plan added to this plan to consist of one controlling plan. And for our approval to be conditioned on the installation of a raised crosswalk at the building entrance, the provision of signage and wayfinding measures to control the two-way and one-way lanes in the large parking areas, we had a couple of items also in here that probably should be framed in terms of conditions. One being the planting plan to prioritize native species and plants with lower water needs, which sounds more like a condition than something to report back to us on. And there was also another one on this list of the second group from our initial decision about providing the solar energy assessment in accordance with section 7.4 of the zoning ordinance. It should be, again, a condition, not something to report back on. and for the applicant to take certain measures in the category of traffic mitigation, which would be to submit, let's see, I want to be respectful of the city staff who put the time into framing this and phrasing it properly. And try to pull up your memo. Okay. So the applicant would submit a professionally prepared plan to Mass DOT by June 1st of this year that would provide for, we have the sidewalk, and that is reflected on the plan. Mike, your plan, you have the sidewalk showing there?
Yes, on the plan,
Okay.
we have the sidewalk from property line to property line, along with the wheelchair access at the existing crosswalk here, and then a crosswalk going across the driveway.
Excellent. Okay. So as reflected on your plan, that would be the request. And also to adjust the merge lane as suggested by PDS. The condition would also provide that if for some reason Mass DOT approval is not secured, that as an alternative, the applicant would be required to provide the painted bump outs identified in Director Blake's memo. But the applicant, I think, would be encouraged to communicate with city staff and the board on its progress if, for some reason, it believes it can still secure Mass DOT's approval before it proceeds to the bump outs. I'm looking away because I'm checking my list. Okay. Okay, that's a long rambling amendment for approval with conditions, but consider that as you think about it. Let me acknowledge Director Blake, whose hand is raised. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to recommend if you were searching for language. So my initial recommendation has 1 A, B, C, D, 2, and I through III. So if I understand PDS's suggested compromise, if the board were to go with that, you could probably just reference the language in my letter 1A and possibly C as well. So then you wouldn't necessarily have to reconstruct that wording.
Okay.
And then if DOT didn't approve that, it's I from the recommendations, single I. So then you could just refer to those numbers or letters versus if you chose to.
That might be very helpful. Appreciate that.
It appears that they're suggesting 1A and possibly C as the compromise that they're proposing, but I'll defer back to Amanda to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. And then if not, if DOT dismissed it, then it would be single I from the memo. So then you don't have to rewrite everything.
Okay. Director Blake, that's the October memo. I'm trying to follow along.
Correct, October 20th, 2022.
Okay. Okay, I see. 1A and 1C.
Again, I don't want to misrepresent what PDS said, so maybe if they could skim that quick to make sure it's accurate with their recommendation.
Yes, sorry, if I may.
Please, Amanda, thank you.
Yes, that is aligned with our recommendation. Basically, that the decision be amended to require the applicant to submit a professionally prepared plan to Mass DOT by June 1st, 2023 per mitigation items 1A and C in Director Blake's memo. And in the event that MassDOT does not approve or is unresponsive by such a time that the applicant applies for a certificate of occupancy, was just a offered timeframe. The applicant would be responsible only for providing mitigation item 2I in Director Blake's memo.
Okay.
If that sounds any tidier, I don't know.
No, that sounds pretty good. Thank you.
I'd say just I2 was a different item. Sorry, the way I wrote that is confusing.
Yeah, so it's little I on the bottom of page 9.
Correct.
That's describing the suggested bump outs. Okay. All right. And one more question. Mike, on your plan, does your plan show the raised crosswalk already?
So you're talking about the one in front of the main entrance?
That's correct.
Right. So here is the, if you can see, here's the main entrance and then a note, raised crosswalk for traffic calming.
Okay. All right. So that's already included as well. Okay, great. Okay. Should I suggest what someone might want to present as a motion to the board? Okay. So let's try to recap again. We're looking to amend previously approved site plan with the revised site plan reflected here, plus incorporation of the landscaping details from the separate landscaping plan. Submit reference on what that is. Date and time of that plan, which we all have in our materials and discussed in detail in the last meeting. The conditions would include, from the items that you were going to report back on, applicant that is, 2F and 2I, plantings and solar assessment. I don't think we have to have, well, I guess we could say the raised crosswalk at the building entrance is a condition, although that's reflected on the plan, which we appreciate. Another condition would be the providing clear signage and other traffic wayfinding measures to address the circulation two-way and one-way of the drive lane and the large parking area. And then as to mitigation, the condition would require the applicant to submit a professionally prepared plan to Mass DOT by June 1st of this year, seeking approval for the mitigation items identified as 1A and 1C in Director Blake's October 20th, 2022 memo. And if approved to perform the work, if Mass DOT does not approve the proposed mitigation or is unresponsive to the proposal, by the time the applicant applies for the certificate of occupancy, the applicant would be responsible only for providing the painted bump outs, which are mitigation item Romanet 1, bottom of page 9 of Director Blake's memo. But the applicant would first report to the city staff and or board to discuss progress with Mass DOT in the event that approval from Mass DOT is anticipated or forthcoming before proceeding with the bump out work. Amanda, as our master note taker, do you think I've swung and missed on issues or conditions?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive, just taking a last look here. But yeah, I think we've got it.
Okay. So, board members, are any of you enthused enough to make a motion for that?
I will motion whatever long thing you just said.
Okay. I'll let the record reflect that it's in there in the record and you've made a motion.
There. I trust that it's in there, but I will move to approve the amendments.
Excellent. The amendment and conditions.
Yes, the amendment and the conditions.
Is there a second?
And I can second.
Thank you, Ari. Okay, roll call vote.
I second.
Thank you, Ari. Chrissy Dowd.
Yes.
Peter Collis.
Yes.
Ari Goffman Fishman.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm a yes as well. Applicant team, how are we doing?
That's great. No, thank you so much. We had to come back a few times, but I greatly appreciate tonight and going late Wednesday night. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, that's great. Best of luck with the project. We look forward to seeing it come together. And thanks for the cooperation on the updated plans to you and especially to Mike for putting that together for us on short order.
Love to have you guys, opening that.
Sounds good.
So, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay. We do have some minutes that are available for approval. We had these on the agenda at the last meeting and I now have an opportunity to examine the March 15th, 2023 minutes. Any comments on the minutes? Amanda, these are the same ones that were before us at the last meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay. For myself, I read them. I did not have any comments. Anyone else with comments or an alternative, a motion to approve the minutes? Motion for approval?
This is Christy. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Christy. Is there a second?
This is Jackie. I will second.
Thanks, Jackie. Okay, so as to the minutes, roll call vote. Vice Chair Jackie McPherson.
Yes.
Christy Dowd.
Yes.
Peter Collis.
Yes.
Ari Goffman Fishman.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much. Now we're on to miscellaneous items. Amanda, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'll be quick. So we do have, our next meeting is May 17th. And so far, the only item on the agenda is actually one some of you may be familiar with. the site plan review for and a special permit request for 200 Boston Ave, which is by the applicant is Cummings Properties. And the reason I say that some of you may be familiar, it's actually been before the board, I think actually twice before. And it had gone off to ZBA, but then due to kind of a challenge around how the building commissioner's determination for pathway, they have come back, and with the new zoning in that district, O2, there's like a slightly different pathway forward. So if it looks familiar to some of you, it's because it is. The project really hasn't changed since the last submission. And for some of you, it will be new. But it is still a site plan review, and there's a special permit attached to that as well in regards to some relief. So details on that to come. Other thing. So I wanted to introduce something of a bit of a dilemma to the board. We were reached out to by Tufts on a project they're proposing for Eaton Hall, which is sort of in the heart of their campus. And with the recodification, a result of that was that all projects that are Dover uses qualify as major projects, regardless of size, which in the past, you would see, 10,000.
I would caveat it. It doesn't say they qualify as major projects. It says all projects that qualify as Dover. So any building permit must go to site plan review. And the reason I jump in and correct Amanda is because my concern is these are things that would never have come to the board in the past. They would have been approved as of right by the building commissioner because they're not major. I think, go on, Amanda, because you kind of have this prepared. This one's like 3,500 square feet.
Yeah, so it's a C-shaped building. It's no changes intended for the building itself, except for they're kind of infilling the interior C portion of it. And actually that feature will make the building far more accessible and energy efficient. So, some boons to that. And it's, otherwise, besides it being a Dover use, would be nowhere near touching any of the other kind of criteria that would trigger or define it as a major project in need of site plan review. So we wanted to ask you guys, as a result of some of this back and forth, whether the board would be open to or would want to hear or entertain a request from the applicant to waive certain site plan review requirements or perform a sort of modified site plan review. And I think this could tie into a future conversation that our office would be interested in having with you all about whether we would want to instate some sort of, whether the board would want to instate some sort of a rule or regulation allowing them to bypass hearing some of these really small projects. So I'll drop it there for a second.
The one other thing that I think is key that Amanda alluded to is this is in the middle of their campus. So the one we just heard, right? You just heard Bacon Hall. Sorry, some of these projects are presented to me so many times that I lose track of which boards they've gone in front of versus my individual meetings with the applicants. That one was actually on a city street and was impacting the general public. This one, we actually had them do an analysis of who would be within 400 feet of the project, because usually you notice within 400 feet of a parcel. But if we said who was within 400 feet of the project, there is exactly one property owner in the city of Somerville whose property is actually within 400 feet of this because it's at the top of their hill, right? If you all know Tufts Hill, it's at the top. So I feel like that's relevant because I think it's a different question. Maybe if it's literally on a Medford street, facing a street versus in the middle of their campus.
Yeah, you can't even see it from a public way. many people are familiar with the Tufts campus, it's where one of the computer labs is. Spent many an hour in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's like a square,
Me too.
it's like so small for in terms of square footage, and it's internal and has no visible impact.
Yeah, it doesn't strike me as something that would necessitate like a full process. If it is internal to Tufts campus, it's not on a public way, it's not impacting a public way in the city of Medford.
Yeah, it's literally on their quad. It's like on their green space.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
It just I think like philosophically to have an institution come in and increase their expenses and just make things more expensive, it's just going to get passed on to students, and less mitigation and benefits to the community. I feel like just it's expensive every time they come and have their lawyers and everything to go through a process.
Unless this was a city like some others that require institutions to do like institutional master plans, and like every project they do has sort of a design review component through the planning board. It's like, a project like that doesn't seem that it should have to come through a full review.
So if the board is sort of leaning that way, the way we read the zoning, and I'd be happy to have somebody else have a different opinion of the read, but because the Dover section isn't long, but it just says they must have site plan review. So what we think has to happen is that it has to appear on an agenda, and Tufts has to present something to you. And we have this discussion on an agenda with them, right? And you make a formal thing on that. We can't do that tonight. This was sort of a making sure that was, because if you guys, it sounds like you all are amenable to that, then we need to figure out sort of what we should tell them, maybe to sort of present this, what the project is, like do a 5 to 7 minutes. Here's what it is. Here's the size, the scale, where it is on the campus. And then like you all could make a motion to waive site plan review. You can make a motion to approve it, to say we waive the requirements of a detailed site plan review. But what I didn't want to do was, if you guys tonight were like, no, they must come, then we would just advise them to file a full thing, right? Like it's an expense and it's a hassle for them. So
yeah. So could they do that? Could they? And I think it's tough for them as an institution, because we've tried to, I know in the past, try to encourage them not to overdo it, but they always bring a lot of people, which, to their credit, they're taking it seriously. But could they really do a 5-minute presentation where somebody shares a screen and talks about what they're doing, and then we approve it or consider that the site plan review? If they can do it, I think that's great.
I think we should double check people can ask for a waiver from site plan review from the details from submitting all these things. And we should maybe just figure out exactly what they should ask for a waiver from. And that would be a document submitted to you in advance, would be part of the public record. They presented it to me and Amanda and Danielle in less than 7 minutes, right? So they're capable with just Rocco and their lawyer.
Yeah. So what if they could do that all at once? They show up at the meeting, they do the 5 minutes, and we vote, yes, we'll waive all the requirements. And, oh, by the way, we're going to go ahead and approve it. And
right.
We're done.
Right.
Let me ask, in terms of trying to address this for long term, because we're sort of stuck with what we have now, is there something that could be suggested in terms of an amendment here? Maybe while the city council is looking at the PDD, they could fix something like this?
So I am talking with Zach, like we had said, Councillor Bears, about if there are some, what we would consider administrative changes. And it's this difficulty, right? It's the difference between, is this substantive versus administrative? And we all agree it has to go through the legal zoning process. Yep. But this doesn't need a zoning study. This doesn't need like a massing study to tell us how it's going to impact the city. I think that we could ask for an amendment to the Dover section, and the simplest would be to add in, sorry, I didn't pre-think this, the language that any project that meets the requirements of Medford's major projects would go through site plan review. Or you could say major projects or is visible, is forward facing on a public street, right? If you wanted to include those. I just, anything more than major projects is more than what we had before. Anything, right, that didn't trigger our major projects definition was approved as of right by the building commissioner. So we don't have to go all the way back to that. But I think, in my opinion, Tufts would be happy with anything that said that they didn't always have to come.
Right. Yeah, because I was really surprised when I saw this, because we were in a meeting and I was like, why is this triggering site plan review? This is under all of the size thresholds. If it was, a private entity, they just get the building permit, but because it's Tufts and it is or any other use that could qualify as a Dover amendment, all of a sudden is subject to this.
Right. Technically, under this, any daycare that's small, which could have been done as of right, now has to come to this board.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was like an unintended provision. Like I the way that I had read it, and then I think the Tufts lawyer was like, no, I think Bobrowski did this on purpose. But I don't know, because I wasn't part of that. But in my experience, site plan review for Dover uses was always like an abbreviated, more streamlined process. Our last ordinance didn't talk about Dover uses. So, the lawyer would be like, this qualifies as a Dover amendment use, and therefore it does not have to go through this, long process, or is allowed, by right, or has, can't be disapproved. But the fact that the threshold was lowered to everything,
right,
rather than the same standard of private entity.
If it's helpful, I don't know if we can cut and paste this into the chat if it's easier. It says site plan review required prior to the issuance of a building permit or certificate of occupancy, the establishment, alteration, change, extension, or reconstruction of uses B3, 4, or 5, as set forth in the table of use and parking regulations, shall require site plan approval from the Community Development Board pursuant to this section. So this is any alteration, change, extension, or reconstruction. I mean, if the building commissioner wanted, he could say, anytime you want to pull any kind of building permit, but he has already said, if it's completely 100% internal, right? If they're doing plumbing fixtures, he's not sending it here. Like, there's a level at which it was irrational.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a larger issue about, where this falls on a list of potential amendments and that sort of thing. But at least we have kind of a consensus of trying to do something abbreviated for things like this at Tufts and maybe some other ones as well.
And is there any sense from you all that it should be anything more than things that trigger the major projects list? I think that's 10,000 square feet. It's not any new buildings. It's new buildings over 10,000 square feet. I'd have to find it.
Well, there was an interplay, I know, in the daycares between the large ones and the small ones, and the large ones, we wanted to have some site plan review. I mean, the thing that strikes me about Dover is that Dover can drop things you don't plan to have in your district into your district. So, I think there was a sense that some of these things, can't be heavily regulated, but maybe some more of them should have, an opportunity for neighbors to be heard and some public discussion and that sort of stuff. So I just don't know that, 10,000 square feet is really the right cutoff. I agree with you. There is definitely a line out there in a way somehow to define what's de minimis, but
it might be major project or new building, like a new construction. Like if Tufts was about to put a new 5,000 square foot building in the middle of their campus that we don't see, would we want to have a hearing on it? And I don't know. That's the house size, right? It's a large house. I think maybe we should leave it at people should think about this, and we should have another discussion, because if it goes into changing zoning, it's going to come in front of this board for review. It's, in my mind, better if it's going to be something that's under your purview, if the proposal that goes in for the change, you're already in agreement with, you already have thought about it a little. So, like, I don't want our office propose something about how you do business that you fundamentally disagree with. So we should think about it and bring it up again before we make the proposal.
Yeah, so I would have it, you guys should probably, take a look at section 94-11.7.2 applicability, which is what it says, what's a major project and what is subject to site plan review in general. And I almost feel like that the Dover uses, which I noticed that there is not a section on applicability, it just kind of goes into changes. But maybe think if there's Dover uses, like David, what you were saying about like the larger daycares, like what kind of threshold you might want to require. I mean, it's
Yeah, so I think there was an interplay there with the use table, but that's, again, my recollection. I'm not obviously looking at it right now. But it's something we can certainly put some more thought into, no doubt.
Oh yeah, it's churches. Don't forget that Dover is churches. B3 is religion, B4 is educational purposes, and B5 is child care center or school-age child care program.
I feel like if it's the creation of a new facility, like maybe you'd want to take a look at it. But if it's always been there and they're just like doing something to make an improvement to it, then it seems like overkill. And
Depends if it has impact.
like a new large daycare, which is only 10 kids, by the way, a large family daycare, it's 10 kids, that's it. It's not that big. So maybe that would require site plan review if it was new, but if it's already there and they just want to add an addition so that they can have a separate place for infants to sleep, like why would they? No increased enrollment.
Well, at least between now and an amendment.
Right. We can think about it later, but I'll actually point out that our section on Dover does not reference daycares. Daycare is under K, accessory uses, and is family. You're thinking of family daycare, so it's considered an accessory use. And literally, our thing references B3, 3, 4, and 5, which is religion, schools, and childcare centers. But the accessory use, the family daycare, a home, large or small, is not mentioned in our Dover section.
Okay.
So they may be covered by Dover, but our section doesn't require site plan review for them. So.
Interesting that it's only an accessory use because there are family daycares that are in units by themselves.
Put it on the list.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my answer to Danielle.
How many pages is our list now? I mean, it's gotta be like 50 pages of things we need to change.
Okay.
Unintended consequences, domino effects. So if you change one little thing here and it's just ripples, and you only find them when you're applying it to each case. So it's, yeah.
Well, speaking of lists, Amanda, how are we doing on our list of miscellaneous items?
Nearly there. I'm just going to mention that tomorrow over Zoom, there is a Tufts community meeting in case anyone is interested. It's at 6 p.m. I think they're going to be speaking to kind of a lot of different, I think at a larger scale rather than just like project specific things, Tufts intentions for future in the city. So city details on that in the city calendar. And that's all I've got.
Okay, great. We ready? Motion for adjournment unless anyone else has.
Oh, I want to tell you, we've given and had 2 job offers received for our office. So CDBG manager has been filled and the housing planner position has been filled. CDBG manager starts May 15th and housing planner a week later, May 22nd. Yay. And I hope to have the economic development planner position posted any day now. I actually need to go nag that one.
That's great.
Here.
Any others? If not, motion to adjourn for tonight.
This is Chrissy. I'm making a motion to adjourn.
And is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Peter. Roll call. Vice Chair Jackie McPherson,
Yes.
Christy Dow,
Yes.
Peter Calvis,
Yes.
Ari Goffman-Fishman,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, thanks very much.